What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over Acts of Vengeance. Now, when it comes to Acts of Vengeance, this was a massive Marvel event that came out in 1989 all the way up to 1990. Now, the reason for this book or this crossover was the idea to see our heroes go up against characters they don't usually fight against. So, for example, Wolverine going up against Tiger Shark, or Hulk going up against Grey Gargoyle, or Spider-Man going up against Magneto. We're going to see that battle in this video. Now, when it came to Acts of Vengeance, we have to remember that this entire plan came together thanks to Loki. You see, when it came to Loki, he realized that the villains are always losing to the same heroes over and over again because those heroes know how to handle those villains. And so you had Loki tell Kingpin, Magneto, Doctor Doom, Red Skull, and said, hey guys, listen, what if we change up our actual plans here? What if each of us and other villains go after characters we don't usually fight against? And maybe we'll have a fair chance in actually winning. And so that what led to the idea of our heroes going up against characters they don't usually fight against. Now, when it comes to Spider-Man, around this time in Marvel Comics, he had 3 different books. He had The Amazing Spider-Man, The Spectacular Spider-Man, and The Web of Spider-Man. But all 3 books were being used in this massive crossover by Marvel Comics. But when it came to Spider-Man, all 3 books were telling this story about Spider-Man going cosmic. Let me explain. So we already talked with the first 3 chapters of this big, huge story for Peter Parker, where he was at the Empire State University working alongside with a doctor known as Max Labish, and I really hope I pronounced his last name correctly. Now, when it came to Max, he was tapping into a mysterious energy source, not knowing where it actually came from. And so with Peter Parker being there, Peter was hit with that unknown energy source, which made him go cosmic, giving him the ability to do all kinds of things, but also being able to take down different characters that he would not usually be able to take down. And we're going to see that in today's video, because in the first chapter, we're going to see Spider-Man fighting against Magneto. And so we dive into Amazing Spider-Man number 327. Now, the opening pages of this book, we're seeing Peter Parker being able to do all these different kinds of things thanks to his newfound powers. Now, when it comes to Peter, he's also kind of freaking out about his new godlike powers. Now, Mary Jane is also in the room, but I really like the opening for this book because it's Peter Parker wondering, what could this possibly mean with him having this godlike powers in his hand now? Could this possibly mean that something big is coming down the road? He's also worried about the idea of killing people on accident. Now, when it comes to Mary Jane, she tells Peter, everything happens for a reason, and most likely you are going to figure out what that reason is. But for right now, I need you to calm down and realize that you were given these powers for a good reason. So go change, because we got to meet up with Flash Thompson very soon. But now we jump over to the Acts of Vengeance group. Now here they are right now trying to figure out what in the world is going on with Spider-Man, because he was one of their targets, but not one of their big targets. Let me explain. So Spider-Man is a character that has caused a lot of problems for different villains across Marvel Comics, but he's not as powerful as other characters. And so when it comes to the Acts of Vengeance group, they're trying to figure out what in the world has happened to him. What kind of powers did he gain? Now, when it comes to Doctor Doom, he definitely wants to know what kind of power that Peter Parker has gained. But Magneto also now wants to know what kind of power did Peter Parker gain. And so you have Magneto saying, you know what? Let me handle Spider-Man. Let me go after him. Now, when it comes to Magneto, even though he's part of the Acts of Vengeance group, his purpose for this group is completely different than the others, because right now he is trying to use their resources to help out the mutant race to get ready for a war between mutants and humans down the road. Now, when it comes to Magneto, the other reason why he wants to go after Spider-Man, because he believes that Spider-Man is a mutant. It's the only reason why Spider-Man was able to gain new abilities, because sometimes when it comes to mutants, they gain their abilities late in their life. And matter of fact, you have Magneto say it happened to him, that around this time for a man is when he had gained his ability. And so he feels like Spider-Man has also gained mutant abilities, not knowing that it's not mutant related. And so you have Magneto wondering, how in the world is he going to find Spider-Man? Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, he does go back to the lab to see if there's any kind of clues that could explain what exactly happened to him. But unfortunately, he is kicked out of the lab by Max, who feels like Peter Parker is up to something because he was in Max's lab without his permission. Either way, after you have Peter Parker be kicked out of the lab, you then have Peter Parker head over to a nearby wrecking yard. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, the reason why he went there is to test out his newfound powers, to figure out what else he can do with these new powers. Now, while doing that and causing a lot of damage to this yard, one of the workers was watching him. And so you have that worker call up a news channel to tell them, hey, I got some big news for you. I am currently watching Spider-Man and his newfound powers in my yard. Get over here and come see this mess. Now, for you big time Spider-Man fans out there, you know around this time, Mary Jane has started a new career in acting. And matter of fact, she was able to get onto a show called Secret Hospital. Now, here's the thing about this scene. In this scene, she has to kiss another actor. Now, once she does it and the director calls cut, she realized that that was her first kiss with another man after she had married Peter Parker. And so for her, she's wondering, how will Peter feel about the idea of her kissing another man? Now, she believes that Peter is strong, but at the same time, you can tell that she's kind of worried that Peter might get jealous. But now we have to get back over to Spider-Man. Now, when it comes to Peter, he's still in that yard just testing out his abilities. But then he is confronted by, well, Magneto. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, he's trying to figure out how in the world was Magneto able to find him. And you then have Magneto point out that, dude, there is a news channel team right there watching you and recording you. Like everyone in New York right now can see you. But either way, this is Magneto beginning to test out Spider-Man to see if he actually is a mutant. Now, this battle, it does last for a few pages, but honestly, it's really more of Spider-Man trying to dodge all the different attacks that Magneto is throwing at him, but at the same time, it's also Spider-Man still learning about what he can do with those newfound powers. Now, in the middle of their battle, there was a car that was thrown at Peter Parker, one of many, but one of the cars did land somewhere else. You see, when it comes to their battle, one of the cars did land on top of a boat nearby. And so you have Peter using his newfound powers to save those people on the boat. Now, when it comes to Magneto, he realized that this battle is over. And the reason why? Because he realized that Spider-Man is not a mutant. He says, listen, usually when someone is gaining their mutant abilities, they only gain one at first. The rest of their powers comes down the road. And so when it came to him battling against Peter, he realized that Peter was able to do all these different kinds of things at once. And that told Magneto, no, you are not a mutant. Whatever is happening to you is completely different. But unfortunately, I don't care for the time being. And so he leaves. But when it comes to Peter, we do see him being able to save those people on the boat and then go home to Mary Jane. But now we have to jump over to Spectacular Spider-Man number 159, where we do pick up with a prison break. You see, we pick up with Percy and Barton Grimes. Now, they're well known for being brothers Grimm. Now, when it comes to the brothers, they are actually the second version of that name. Now, when it comes to the brothers, their powers comes from their uniforms, where they are able to conjure up different kind of weapons that they can use against their enemies. Now, on their way over to prison, they're being broken out by the Wizard. Now, usually when it comes to the brothers, they go after Iron Man, but you have the Wizard saying, listen, if you guys go after Spider-Man, then we'll handle your hero, which is Iron Man. And they agree to work for the Wizard. But now we jump over to Spider-Man. Now, when it comes to Peter, he's still trying to figure out what all these different enemies coming from, because each book we cover is going to be a different character coming after him. Now, when it comes to Peter, he's also still wondering where in the world did those powers actually come from? Like, yes, he knows it came from the lab, but at the same time, there must be an origin point for these powers. Now, when it comes to Peter, he does not realize that he is actually flying in the middle of New York City. Now, once he does realize, he goes straight back down to the lower level, almost the surface. Now, once he does reach a bridge, his spider sense goes off. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, when it comes to his spider sense, something else is going on with it, but I'll explain more of that down the road. When it comes to Peter, he didn't realize that his spider sense is trying to tell him that somebody is watching him, somebody is studying him. Now, when it comes to Peter trying his best to grab the camera, well, unfortunately, it explodes, and so he has no idea who is actually watching him. Now, we know who has been watching Spider-Man. It's Dr. Doom. It's him trying to learn more about Spider-Man and his newfound powers. Now, when it comes to Dr. Doom, he is informed by the Wizard that Brothers Grimm are going to go after Spider-Man. And so you have Dr. Doom tell the Wizard and Brothers Grimm where they can find Spider-Man at. Now, when it comes to Doom, you can tell that he knows the brothers are going to lose, but at the same time, it gives him the ability to continue to study more of Spider-Man's newfound powers. But now we have to shift our focus back over to Spider-Man. Now, when it comes to Peter, he does arrive at Empire State University. Now, once he does arrive, he realizes that, well, J. Jonah Jameson is there as well, and he's kind of confused on why in the world is JJ there for. Now, when it comes to Jonah, he wants to recruit Peter for his new newspaper company, because remember, by this point in Marvel Comics, JJ had lost the Daily Bugle to Thomas Fireheart, better known as Puma. But either way, when it comes to JJ, he is trying his best to recruit Peter for his new company that he wants to start. Now, before Peter is able to give him an answer, well, once again, Peter's spider sense goes crazy. And so you have Peter walk away to figure out what in the world is going on. But he does promise JJ that he'll call him later on. You see, when it comes to Spider-Man's spider sense, it was trying to tell him what was happening over at Madison Square Garden. You see, when it came to the brothers, they got their hands on the Wizard's anti-gravity disc and actually used them on the building. And so MSG is just floating in the middle of the city. Now, when it comes to Peter, he also sees innocent people falling to their deaths. Luckily, he was able to grab them. But this was all planned out by the brothers, because once they got Peter right underneath the building, they turned off the anti-gravity disc, hoping to crush Peter with the MSG building. But here's the thing, when it comes to Peter's newfound powers, he was able to use them to catch the building and then put it back where it came from. But then he was able to go after the brothers. But the brothers realized that they had made a huge mistake going after Spider-Man for the Wizard and the rest of the Acts of Vengeance group. But just like earlier, when it comes to Doctor Doom, he had another camera out there just recording Spider-Man while he fought against the brothers. He was trying to collect data on Spider-Man. And so this gives us confirmation that Doctor Doom was just using the brothers to gain more data on Peter, to figure out where the powers came from, but to also figure out how can he get his hands on those powers. But now we have to jump over to Web of Spider-Man number 60, where we pick up with Spider-Man fighting against Goliath. Now, you know this character better as Atlas. You see, when it came to Marvel Comics, there were a lot of different characters who were given Pym particles. Now, Goliath here, his real name is Eric Jostin. Around this time in Marvel Comics, he did lose his super strength, but he was able to regain it, but also was given Pym particles as well. Now, like I said earlier, later on, he'll become Atlas when he joins the Thunderbolts, but currently, he's just your regular bad guy going after Spider-Man that was hired by Doctor Doom and the rest of the Acts of Vengeance group. Now, when it comes to his battle against Spider-Man, you have Peter being able to use his newfound powers once again to take down another powerful character without any kind of problem. But again, you have Peter wondering why in the world all these different villains coming after him for. Now, after you have Goliath get his butt whooped by Spider-Man, he did shrink down back to regular size. But here's the thing, when you do have the police officers wanting to take him away, they're then stopped by a random guy claiming to be an FBI agent. But in reality, this guy works for the Kingpin, and since the Kingpin is part of the Acts of Vengeance group, you did have this guy take Goliath into a truck to bring him back over to Kingpin and the rest of the guys. And so now we jump over to Peter Parker heading over to the home of Aunt May. Now when it comes to Aunt May, around this time in Marvel Comics, she was dating a man known as Nathan Lubinsky. Now when it comes to Nathan, he will die in a later story that we had already covered. But around his time in Marvel Comics, everyone knew that he was on the verge of dying because of heart failure. And so you have Aunt May just doing her best to make sure that Nathan's final days are easy. Now, when it comes to Peter, the reason why he stopped by to see Aunt May is to ask her one simple question. And he asked her, what would you do if you had the power of life and death in your hand? And it freaks out Aunt May a lot. But now we jump back over to Goliath. Now, when it comes to Goliath, he was taken back to the base of the Acts of Vengeance group, and they're kind of wondering what to do with him. Now, when it comes to Goliath, he wants a second chance because he was not told how powerful Spider-Man was. Now, when it comes to characters like Magneto, he's all like, no, get rid of him right now. But then you have Doctor Doom step in and say, no, we can actually use him as a way to learn from our mistakes, to learn more about Spider-Man. But at the same time, I can possibly give Goliath the edge to take down Spider-Man. Now, when it comes to Doctor Doom, even though he did promise Goliath that he will give him the ability to take down Spider-Man, in reality, Doom knows that Goliath cannot defeat Spider-Man, but he can still use Goliath to collect data on Spider-Man. Now, getting back over to Peter Parker and Aunt May, you have Aunt May still shocked about the idea of the question that Peter asked. Now, when it comes to Peter, the reason why he had asked that question, because again, he holds godlike power in his hands. He believes that he holds life and death in his hands. But you have Aunt May saying no man should have that kind of power at all. She says, listen, the only power that man should have is the ability to accept life and death, because life and death are part of the life cycle. What she is trying to say is that when it came to Uncle Ben, she had to accept the idea that he was gone and move on. And when it comes to Nathan, she knows that down the road, he is also going to die, but she also has to accept the fact that he is going to go away. And so when it comes to Peter, he realized what she truly means, that even though he has godlike powers, he does not have the right to decide life and death for anybody across the world. Now, like I said earlier, when it came to the Daily Bugle around this point in Marvel Comics, it was no longer under the control of J. Jonah Jameson. It was actually bought out by a character known as Thomas Fireheart, aka Puma. Let me explain. So when it came to JJ in the Daily Bugle, they had published an article claiming that Peter Parker was actually a thief. And so when it came to Puma, he had confronted Peter to only find out that Peter was actually innocent. And so once he realized that the Daily Bugle is always publishing bad articles of Spider-Man, he bought the company out to begin publishing positive articles about Spider-Man. And so when we do pick up with Peter, he does stop by the office of Thomas to ask Thomas one more time to stop publishing stories about him. But then Thomas gets a call from the Kingpin, because the Kingpin knew if anyone knows where to find Spider-Man, it would be the Daily Bugle. Now, luckily for Peter, he was in the office when the Kingpin had called up Thomas on his phone. And so you had Kingpin tell Spider-Man to come to a certain park to have a conversation. Now you do have Peter Parker being able to arrive at the meeting spot the Kingpin told him to be at. Now as soon as Peter arrives at the spot, he quickly finds out that it was a trap. Now when it comes to Peter, he is confronted by Goliath once again. But here's the thing though, when it comes to Goliath, he got an upgrade. You see, when it came to Dr. Doom, he gave Goliath the ability to grow bigger every single time Spider-Man does use his newfound powers on him. But here's the problem though, the bigger he gets, the more stress he puts on his body, the more stress he puts on his heart. His heart cannot handle the size that he's growing to, but he won't stop until he is actually able to stop Spider-Man. Now their battle continues on up to the point where his heart just gives out and you have Goliath just kneel over. Now once you have Peter being able to protect some innocent people that Goliath had put in danger, when he turns around, Goliath is no longer there, wondering where in the world did he go to. But once again we see that Dr. Doom had used somebody else as a way to collect data on Spider-Man. You see, every single time Peter had hit Goliath, it was sending data back over to Dr. Doom. And now Dr. Doom believes that he has the ability to harness the power that Spider-Man is currently holding on to. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.